Hey, everyone. This is Micah here with the Ninth Hour podcast. I know it's been a hot minute or maybe even a month since you heard from us, but we are still in business. As you probably know, or as you've experienced in your own life, sometimes time and consciousness and life itself has different plans and different things that are organized than normally we would have. But that being said, we have something really awesome for you, not just this night, but for probably the next several weeks to come. And we are going to be debunking, we're going to be looking at Batman Begins. Or should I say, Barrie, if he still goes by that name, we'll be looking at Batman Begins. And as you can read here from this title, this is going to be an archetypal journey into death, darkness, and divinity. And not just Batman's death, darkness, and divinity, but ultimately our death, darkness, and divinity. So I am really excited about this series. I actually have not seen Batman Begins. Whoop, so kind of maybe taking the cheating shortcut here. But but hey, that's how I roll sometimes. That's just what I do. So I'm going to give it over to Barrie to give his introduction, and then we are going to go ahead and get in to this. And what my intention is for everyone is just to relax, receive, let it stir you up, because I'm sure it will. Let it permeate, let it percolate, and who knows? It might open up your eyes to something new that you didn't know about yourself and the entire world. So, Barrie, my friend, what do you got to say?
All right. Micah, I'd like to thank you for such a warm, that was, oh man, thank you. That was just a warm invitation. Wait a minute, did I say that right? Invitation?
You did say the right invitation.
Was that the right word to use? I'm making sure. Hold on. Okay, anyway, I got a little bit of haze going on.
Oh, what kind of haze?
Oh man. Thank you for such a warm introduction. I said invitation. Okay, people out there in podcast land. Got a little bit of a haze going on. Don't worry about it, but I'm in the zone. But yes, thank you for such a warm introduction, Micah. And tonight we will be diving into Batman Begins, which is the first movie in a series of movies. It's a three-part. It's actually three movies, a trilogy by Christopher Nolan. And if you've ever checked out some of his works, I mean, heavy on the metaphysics and lots of information, soul revealing information, I should say. For anybody that's on the path, on this journey to godhood, then definitely you'll watch those movies and you're not just seeing the actor on the screen, you're seeing the great drama being played out. And you're seeing yourself in that role. So I would like to thank you all for listening and giving me this chance to share these many truths with you.
Nice. Yeah, we, myself and everyone else, looks forward to it. So with that, Barrie, shall we go on to the first part of this incredible series and the information that you have to reveal?
Yes.
All right. Let us begin.
All right. Okay, so scene here at the beginning, there's an opening scene, and in the scene, Bruce and Rachel are running around the estate or the mansion, and they go into the garden. Now, this movie has so many biblical references that it ain't even funny. But Bruce and Rachel are playing on the estate. Rachel finds an artifact in the garden. If you look right here in this first scene, they've got like a hide and seek thing going on. So you got these two running around. They're in the garden. Rachel finds an artifact. At this point, Bruce responds, "This is my garden." And basically he's saying, okay, this is my garden, so I need that arrowhead. That's basically what he's saying. Well, the artifact, which the artifact is an arrowhead, but I will get into that. Now, already the first reference that should come to your mind here, okay, we got a male and a female in the garden. So already we're on the Adam and Eve shit already.
Now,
So
before I interject, because yeah, I know I'm a little lame. I haven't seen the movie. Who is Rachel?
okay. Rachel is Bruce's childhood friend. So I'm sorry, I should have gave you a little introduction on that, but she is Bruce's childhood friend. So we got Bruce and Rachel, just like you would have Adam and Eve. So the symbology is already here.
Gotcha.
So like I said, Rachel has this artifact in her hand, which is an arrowhead, and Bruce responds and say, well, hey, this is my garden. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, there you have it. It is an arrowhead. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, they're going to be thinking, if you were watching the movie, like, okay, it's just two kids playing around and she found an arrowhead. But there's some very deep symbology with the arrowhead. The arrowhead is symbolic of determination and direction.
Yeah.
Yes, that is the symbolism of the arrowhead. And when we go to the next slide, you're going to see why. But before we go there, Bruce grabs the arrowhead and runs off from Rachel. Now, the first thing to point out here, it is Rachel who finds the arrowhead first. Let's just go ahead and get that out here again, because if anybody is well versed in the Kabbalah talks about when Source creates a soul, it splits the soul in two, male and female. And usually when the souls depart from, if you want to say heaven, when they depart from heaven and they come into this physical incarnation, usually the female finishes her work first and she returns back home. So, and that's usually because she's a lot wiser. So, with that being said, like I said, it's Rachel who gives Bruce the arrowhead. And once again, the arrowhead is symbolic of determination and direction. Could you pull that slide up for me, Micah?
Oh, the description of arrowhead?
Yes.
Righty.
Okay, you see right here, to see an arrowhead in your dream symbolizes your determination, direction, and goal. So Rachel finds the arrowhead and shows it to Bruce. Bruce grabs the arrowhead and runs away with it. So once again, to see an arrowhead in your dream symbolizes your determination, direction, and goal. You are planning a path towards success. All right. Now, some people might be like, well, why are you giving it to us as if it's dream symbolism? Well, number one, this incarnation that we experience when it comes to metaphysics is known as the world dream. That's what it's known as. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what it's known as. So, with that being said, Bruce takes off and he doesn't get that far before he takes a tumble downward. All right. Could you pull that next slide up, Micah?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so if you're looking at the screen, you can see where it looks, you can see the daylight up top. There's light. And as you get further down, it gets dark. It begins to get darker. So now this is very reminiscent of Gnostic Kabbalistic story of male and female being able to come down to earth which is matter, before being placed in these bodies. So Bruce taking this tumble, if you're familiar with Gnosticism and the Kabbalistic interpretations of it, if you're familiar with that, well, there were points before we became so encased in this matter where we were able to come back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a permanent situation like it is now, where you're experiencing lessons, you're experiencing happiness, joy, you're going to experience death, you're going to experience pain. You're going to learn so many lessons, and as far as your soul growth goes. So when Bruce tumbles down, and if you notice, it extends up to where you can see the light, and the further you get down, it's almost like a pit. The further you get down, the darker it gets.
Yeah.
So while Bruce is down here, Bruce encounters his first fear, which is the bat. Now, Micah, could you go to the next slide on the bat? Okay, now this is the bat. Now, normally, bats are nocturnal creatures. So a lot of times, if you're out and you happen to see a bat in the day, trust me, that is definitely some information being revealed to you from your soul. Almost like I would say almost like an omen, because different animals represent different things. But if you see that, trust me, it's not there just by chance. But
Can I speak a little bit? Because
yeah,
I
go ahead.
experience, gosh, I can't remember now. It might have been, I'll have to look at my journals, but 2019, 2020, I was at an old desk job, and I was sitting at a receptionist position. Cannot believe I had that kind of lifetime experience, but I digress. I was looking up towards the ceiling because I was hearing this interesting creaking sound. And it was broad daylight. And I'm looking up at the ceiling, and there's this small opening. What's going on? You see this creaking, and something's in the roof. Well, I noticed then that a bat falls out of that small opening upside down in broad daylight. And it was, I think its wings were broken, to be honest, but it was hanging there. And then another coworker of mine came and saw it, and we were both stunned, because it's like, what is a bat doing out here? And that's what I found so amazing, and at the same time startling, because when's the last time that of all things, I would see a bat like this during the daylight? I mean, long story short, the bat ended up falling, and we had to take it outside, and I don't really know what happened to it afterwards, but I have had that experience of seeing a bat in broad daylight.
Okay, good. Okay, good. That's good. Now, okay. Now, so going into that, all right. So the bat, which is symbolic of death and rebirth. So at this point, now, like I said, for my folks out here who are on this journey and they've done their studying, this is starting to sound very familiar. Bruce has tumbled down into the darkness, into the unknown. Okay. Michael, could you pull up the symbolism for the bat, please? Just in case anybody wants to see that. You probably have to blow it up a little bit, but I went ahead and got it. You can see where it says bats symbolize death and rebirth. Sometimes they are known as the guardian of the night. It is largely misunderstood, so therefore many of its symbolic meanings are inappropriately fear-based. The bat is a symbol of rebirth and death because it is a creature that lives in the belly of Mother Earth. Now, once again, I just said this is starting to sound familiar. Okay, so if you all haven't figured it out by now, Bruce falls down into the pit. And as I say, if you look up, you can see the light. That's the light of the cosmos. That's the light of source. So he's home. Him going into the pit, that's him about to take this descent into matter, into the belly of Mother Earth. He's about to come down. He's about to incarnate, but he's not fully ready yet. So the first thing he experiences is the bat. The bat is symbolic of death and rebirth. So, of course, he becomes fearful. He's afraid. Now, the fear is, man, okay, this incarnation is getting closer. Like I'm really about to go down here and do this. Like I'm about to do it. Now, if you go back to what I said earlier, a soul is split into two, male and female. Usually, the female finishes her work first.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, if anybody's done any studying of the Kabbalah outlines this. It goes into it in depth. But usually, the female finishes her work first. Now, like I said, who gave him the arrowhead? Rachel. Rachel gave him the arrowhead. Rachel, and what did I say about the arrowhead? It was symbolic of direction. So, go back to that. Let's see. Hold on. Okay. Arrowhead, symbolic of determination, direction, and a goal. His goal was to incarnate. That was the goal.
Yes.
So she gave it to him. And you see here where the both halves are working together, male and female. They're working together, not apart. She gave it to him because she knew what he was about to embark on.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, so she knew he wasn't fully prepared. And as I go into it further, you're going to see what I'm talking about. But he's down in the pit. The first thing that emerges out of that darkness is that bat. It's symbolic of death and rebirth. Because when we come down and we incarnate into these physical bodies, that's an aspect of death. That is an aspect of it. Because everything that you possibly can remember when it comes to source, that shit is being erased when you get down there. So now you have to pivot your way through this world. And there's going to be some lessons when you're doing that pivoting, that moving. I mean, there's going to be people who come along at the right time so you can make certain decisions. Decisions aren't going to be made for you. That's where the wisdom comes in at. And hopefully, before you took the incarnation, you were well prepared to take the incarnation. You didn't just jump in, because that's a whole nother story to go into. But you got some jokers just straight. It's like they at a pool and they just jumping straight in, like no caution. Okay, I'm going down. It ain't gonna be that bad.
I mean, it's a different kind of reality. There are other realities that do exist, but this kind of matrix is, yeah, some folks just want to jump in, and others, who knows? We've all been around this universe for quite a few trillion years, so who knows what the deal is.
Exactly. All right, so in the next scene, whoa, I'm about to get ahead of myself. All right, so yeah, I'm about to get ahead of myself. All right, so as Bruce is in the pit, Rachel goes and gets help. So Rachel goes, and next thing you know, Bruce's father comes down into the pit, and he grabs Bruce by the hand. He's holding him. So they go back in, and the first thing he says to Bruce is, "Bruce, why do we fall?" And he says, "So we can get back up. You get another chance. You get back up. You don't stop. You get back up." So this you can really look at this from the parable of the prodigal son. because a lot of people, when they look at it, you got the son. He's the son of the king, the father. Okay, in Christianity, it's going to be father, but when you get deeper into metaphysics, people just say the source, which the source is composed of masculine and feminine energy. Anyway, so the son goes out. He goes out into the world, forgets his mission of why he's here, and the world represents the earth. So the son realizes, he's like, man, you know what? I can always go back home. I can go back home. So on his way back home, some of the servants realize, oh man, it's the son. It's the son of the king. So they find him. The dad welcomes him back. They put a new robe on him, and he had gotten so low in the story to where he was eating the pods that the pigs were eating, which is symbolic because a pig is a low, very low vibratory animal or energy. We're just
Yeah,
gonna look at
they do eat well. They
yeah, they eat anything. So it's low frequency. So basically his frequency had gotten so low. This dude was basically out here in the muck with the pigs, eating off what they were eating off of. So basically his vibration had gotten that low. So the father was so happy that the son came back. He welcomed him back. Now he put a new robe on him. And he put a ring on his finger. Now it said he slew the fattened calf. Now, what that means, a lot of people thinking, oh, yo, they barbecue, they had a good time. No, the shit's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. They ain't okay. When it says that he slew the fattened calf, he slew the human body. The son had gotten everything he could have out of that human body. It no longer served the purpose. He'd already finished that incarnation, so it was time for him to go home. So the father put a ring on his finger. The ring was symbolic of him completing a round of incarnation. That's why it was a ring he put on his finger. That's what it's symbolic of. And the father rejoiced that he made it back. So he was happy because his son, look at it. This dude had gotten so low down here till he forgot who he was. He forgot who he was. And then he says, wait a minute, man, I can go back to my father's house. I can go back. So that's symbolic of him remembering his divinity. It's like, wait a minute, man, I'm a God. I'm a divine being. Why the hell? You know what, man? Fuck this. I'm about to go back. And that's what he did. So that's what that story is symbolic of. That's what that means.
yeah.
So, yeah. So we're moving into the next section of that. So
And just one point, Barry, though, what I want to add to that is I will say this just from my own experience. No matter where you're at in life, you're always going to actually be veering back towards home.
Yeah. Oh
You feel like
yeah.
you've actually always been home. Home has never been out there. Home has always been you as you and your connection to source, spirit, your beingness.
Yep.
So I say that because there might be somebody who listens to this now, forever. It just seems like you may think you're so far off your path or whatever it is that's going on in your life. And you can always go home. In fact, you may not realize that you probably are home. But if we get too distracted by our traumas, our dramas, and things in this world, then we lose sight of that. But just as the story you gave, you can always come home. You're always yours home. You just have to get out of like what home looks like, because spirit, source, universe, however you put it, shows up in many different ways and many different forms. So some people get caught up in a God being in the sky, or something has to look a particular way, like what people define as quote unquote holy and all that. So if you drop your judgment, your point of view, to how you look and how you're trying to look at it, then if you just always know you're always home. And home may not be, again, what you think it looks like, but you can always come home and it's always there. Spirit presents itself in all kinds of ways. So just don't get caught up in what you think it has to look like.
Yep. Good
Okay.
explanation. Oh yeah, no, great explanation on that.
Yeah,
Because
and the other thing
oh,
is to be aware when you are not being you, because here was that son, he was not being his true self. And here he was with the pigs and the dirt. And we've all been there. And sometimes we have, peaks and valleys with that too. And we're like, well, wait a minute, I'm not being my true nature. I'm being less than, or being, the lower consciousness, a lower frequency. So it takes a lot of courage to have that awareness and be like, oh, wait, I'm not being my true nature here, but I can always return home,
oh
to
yeah,
home to who I truly am, to
most
the source
definitely.
divine that's always within me. So anybody hearing that, think you're off course. It just takes some awareness, some consciousness, and you've always got the divine spark. It's always in you. It's just, like I said, like Barry talked about, this reality is, I mean, damn, it's not for the faint of heart.
No, it's not. It is
It
not.
might be one of the densest that I've ever experienced. I don't know.
I'm telling you,
So
telling you.
I don't know. And even now it's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but moving on. You can
Okay, well, uh, um, while Michael was breaking that down for y'all, I went ahead and I pulled it up, and it's Luke 15:11 through 32, and it's the King James Version. And it says, a certain man had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided unto them his living. And not many days after, the youngest son gathered all together and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. Now, look at how Micah broke that down to y'all. Okay, so you get down here and you start to lose your way. That's the riotous living right there. She broke that down. So, and when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would fain have filled his belly with the husk that the swine did eat, and no man gave unto him. And when he came to himself, he said, how many hired servants of my father's have bread enough to spare, and I will perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee. I am no more worthy to be called thy son, and make me as one of thy hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But he was yet a great way off. His father saw him and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servants, bring forth the best robe, put it on him, put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring hither the fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found, and they began to be merry. Now his eldest son was in the field, and as he came and drew nigh to the house, he heard music and dancing. He called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said unto him, thy brother is come. Thy father hath killed the fatted calf, because he hath received him safe and sound. And he was angry and would not go in. Therefore came his father out and entreated him. And he answering said to his father, Lo, these many years I do serve thee, neither transgress I at any time thy commandment, and yet thou never gavest me a kid, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this thy son was come, which hath devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed for him the fatted calf. And he said unto him, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine. It was meet that we should make merry and be glad, for this thy brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found. Now, another brief explanation of the elder brother. The elder brother is an archangel, a Michael, a Raphael, a Uriel, or a Gabriel. the angels don't leave. We come down here and we trek in this craziness that's going on down here. And sometimes we get lost, like you see here in this parable. But when we come back to that place of realization, it's like, man, you know what? I can go back home. So that's what that represents.
That is very interesting. We'll have to do another series on the whole angel demon stuff, because that's a different story for another day.
That goes in pretty heavy right there. So we're gonna keep it going.
Yeah, Batman Begins.
Yeah, I know, right? All right, so let's see. All right, so part 2, Bruce awakens in a prison from a nightmare.
Oh, should I
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, could you go to the next slide, please? My bad.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, now Bruce awakens in a prison from a nightmare. Now it's a nightmare right now because Bruce has recollections of home, of heaven, and of source, basically. Wherever source is apart from this place, that's always going to be heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at this moment, it's a nightmare for now, but later in the story, it becomes guidance, and I'll get into that. But Bruce awakens in a prison. Now, once again, this is for my people on a journey who are doing the work of the study and the meditation. A lot of people refer to Earth as the prison planet. So when I saw this scene in the movie, that was the first thing that flashed in my mind, like, oh shit, it's right here. They giving it to us right here. But Bruce awakens in the prison, to which the planet has been called a prison planet to some souls and a school to others. Now, some souls here see this as a prison planet, and other souls see it as a school, a learning place. Now,
and some of us see it as a place that was supposed to be even in a playground.
That's right. Yep. Very good.
But then you have to get lessons along the way and then wonder if you are in prison. So you kind of get the whole roundabout thing.
That's right. Nah, but you hit it, because you're going, the further along you get, and especially the ones who've gotten past, because at a point, some souls see it as a prison. So of course, those are the ones who are still longing to get back home. That's that bitterness, because this shit is crazy down here. Mm-hmm. So then you got the other souls, okay, they come to that realization, all right, I'm in school. And then you got the jokers who know for a fact, man, you know what? I'm just here for a second. So, okay, I'm gonna hit some bumps. But I'm gonna have a good time while I'm down here. And I'm going back home. So
yeah.
The whole running around Eve and having what Micah said at the end, that was it. She just hit it on the head. So moving further into it, as Bruce awakens, like I said, it's a nightmare because Bruce has recollections of home, of heaven. It's a nightmare for now, but later in the story, the nightmares become guidance. Okay, so one of the men in the prison, as Bruce is awakening from the so-called nightmare, he asks, is it worse than this place? Mm-hmm. And Bruce has this awkward look on his face because, we have these moments in life where it could be a simple phrase from a stranger, and you could be in a dark place, and that phrase will jolt you. And that's the higher self kicking in, like, all right, okay, you didn't have enough of this shit. Okay, I know you're down, but I got to get you going again. Mm-hmm. So the stranger says that to him, and Bruce just has his look on his face, like, because now it's like, okay, really, this isn't a nightmare. I know it's not a nightmare. Bruce is having recollections of his time back home, source, heaven. He's having recollections of that. Mm-hmm. So it's really not a nightmare. To him, it's a nightmare, but later on in the story, like I said, it becomes guidance. So anyone who begins to awaken recollections of their true origins before coming down to be put into these vessels, these containers, it's a nightmare. Because you got so much stuff going through your mind. It's like, oh man, why did I do this shit? Why did I come down here? Why? So you have that moment, you be like, because it's everything is down here. It's like, oh, if I could just meet the right girl, I can meet the right guy. Oh man, I ain't got no money. Everything is gonna go. You're gonna go through that shit. I ain't got you. Either you got too much money, you ain't got enough money. It's everything is gonna go through your mind. Everything. You can go through the phases where you look in the mirror, I look fat. Oh, I'm too skinny. All that shit's gonna go through your mind, man, because that's a part of being in these containers, these vessels. And once again, I'm giving y'all Kabbalistic terms. So,
well,
go ahead.
I know I'm interjecting. I will say, like, that's how the reality is constructed. I've learned to really love and appreciate my body, and I think I always was meant to, because, like I said, I think Earth was always meant to be an Eden, and you can still find it. It's just, but the things you mentioned about relationships, about money, even sex and family. I mean, I guess again, like we could go into so many other topics about, who created this kind of matrix.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just such a, I mean, even now I'm just like, this stuff just is such a lie. Like who would who would think of this and put it on such a gem of like Mother Earth when this was supposed to be like heaven on earth? And yet somehow we all come through this really, I like what, like what is it to where we are? How are we going to find somebody? How are we going to make money? Oh, well, then there's so many judgments and points of views and the news media, good gosh, and dealing with trauma and all these other things. It's really like some level of insanity. So it does make sense where you're like, oh my gosh, why the hell would I sign up for this kind of insanity here? That does not, this can't possibly be real. And then you find yourself longing, because I know for me, there is a longing for those moments, like moments I've had where you do see literally heaven in a wildflower. And you're like, but this is how it's supposed to be. But how is it not actually, how is it there are moments where we do experience those heaven experience those, and then you look out in the rest of the world and and it's hard to not be caught up in it. And again, without getting, too off track, but there is clearly a broadcast of a projected programming of how you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to act, how you're supposed to deal with money, how you're supposed to look at your body. And none of it's true. It's all to make us anything but ourselves. And so again, I totally get it if you are someone who has those kind of dreams where it does seem like a nightmare. Because on a level you do know who you truly are, your true level of Eden, paradise, Hawaii, I love Hawaii, or whatever it is that you can describe. And then it's like, but it's not entirely, it's not entirely there. Because you're also aware of this other aspect of quote unquote this reality, how this matrix is constructed. And it's like somebody decided to overlay a prison here. So like I said, I can relate. And even just going through what you're talking about in the movie, it's like I've had those same dreams of like, I would love to have that back. Why can't I just stay there? I wake up in this part of my life. I'm like, what happened? So yeah, it's definitely, sometimes you have the peaks and valleys with that. As I keep saying, you have those moments where you are walking in heaven and seeing heaven in wildflower, and then like what the hell happened?
That's right. Yes, you hit it right on the head. You hit it right on the head. I'm so okay. So nah, you caught me off guard for a quick second. Okay, Micah just really went into the ups and downs and all the emotions that you will experience in your physical incarnation. She did a great job of it. And a lot of times, a lot of times we are in there's synchronicity. She could be going through something. I could be going through the same thing. We might not touch base for a few weeks, and then it's like, oh, you know what? I was going through that too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, touching back, as I say, we get put into these vessels, these containers. Once again, these are Kabbalistic references I'm making. So, for anybody out there who has not did any reading of the Kabbalah, I would tell you to get the book by Rabbi Cooper. It's called God is a Verb. And a lot of the stuff we talking about tonight, it goes over that. So definitely check that out. And that's God is a Verb by Rabbi Cooper. Very eye-opening. Now, back to what I was saying. Okay, so Bruce awakens from the nightmare. And right now, not just for Bruce, but for some of us, it'll be a nightmare if you haven't made peace with your choice and your decision as to why you came here in the first place. If you have not gotten to that point, man, it's going to be a nightmare. And I'm talking about getting past the preschool shit where, oh, I'm going to be a good person because I want to go to heaven. Nah, getting past that preschool shit. Because once you get to a certain level, it's like, you know what? Okay, I got this. You're not concerned with the heaven or the hell. You're not concerned with that. You got your hands firmly on the wheel. You're making the decisions based off of the time that you're putting into your work. Your work is going to be your quiet time, your meditation, connecting to Mother Earth, connecting with people of like mind. And when you do these things, that's when you experience your synchronicity and things falling into place. It's just natural. It's just as natural as breathing. Mm-hmm. When you put in the work in, those things happen. And then you might have moments where things just seem kind of like it's just moving along like a snail. And even in those moments, your higher self is working hard as hell on the other side because stuff is taking place. You may not be aware of it, but it's taking place.
Yeah. I can attest to that. There are natural moments where there are a lot of pauses, and we don't really always know how long those pauses are. Sometimes they seem like a day, weeks, months, sometimes even years, but life is a journey, and there are moments like guideposts along the way to keep you moving along, so I would say there's no such thing as necessarily being stuck, because I think life naturally has an intention and desire to evolve and grow and return to its natural state, its natural sense of, its true nature, to source nature, cosmic nature. Everything will always come back to from which it came. You are that from which you came. So the pauses and everything, or even the struggles and I'm using peaks and valleys a lot. They are, I would say, ultimately part of the process. And if you're aware of them, it is still for you to return to your true nature. And then I always say there's a greater contribution, a greater gift that everybody has to offer. And again, that may not be necessarily what you think it looks like or what you had planned. And I know sometimes when those of us are on a spiritual journey, we can probably more easily get caught up in that. Like, I got to be a yoga teacher, I got to be a healer, I got to be a Reiki. And not to say those things are not part of your journey, but those are things that you do. They're not necessarily who you are. So your contribution may be beyond those things in life. But ultimately, yeah, we do have those battles of, okay, I know I'm here for something greater than this. I may not know what that is. I may feel stuck at the time, but if I'm aware of it and I can just relax, relaxation is such a big thing. Relax, be at ease. Then no matter what's going on, we can always remember that, okay, we're here for a greater purpose. Like Barrie talked about, we're not the only ones going through things. Sometimes somebody else is going through something very similar. So then just being aware of the greater process that we're all experiencing lets us know that even though we may feel stuck, we're actually not stuck. Um, and I also want to add, because I guess this seems to be a thing, we're almost getting off topic, but on this planet is also the sun's going through changes, the planets are going through changes, the with the asteroid belt, supposedly the missing planet. Um, we're made up of all of this stuff. So all of these things are going through changes right now. And with that being said, we're all impacted by things beyond just what we think our worlds are. So just to remind yourself of that, wherever you're at in life, even if you do feel stuck, you're not really stuck. There's a greater picture, a greater plan that you are and that you're a part of. And I would say ultimately, it does leave you a great level of fulfillment and what your true nature is. Because, I think everyone and everything is designed to prosper. If you look outside in nature, nature can show us that. But it's just, we have to be mindful of not getting tripped up in what this constructed matrix or this constructed reality tells us, because it's going to tell you a different story. It's ultimately going to tell us a bunch of lies. And hopefully more people are starting to see that and turn their attention and awareness to a different direction. Like I said, if you need examples, spend time in nature, submerge yourself in trees, observe the birds, the butterflies, have those moments where you're just sitting with it and seeing. Because yes, even though Mother Earth is being tinkered and messed with, she's far more powerful and potent than people realize. But I think she's a wonderful example of life taking care of life and the greater plan and the greater picture that everyone and everything has. And so, Barrie and I talking, whoever's listening, you also have a greater place too. And it's not to falter and be in lack or poverty. It is to prosper and to return home to who you truly are. So just don't buy the lies that the media is telling you, right? But also don't buy the lies. I said mainstream media. Don't buy the lies of the mainstream media. Use your wisdom and discernment with any media, right? But don't buy the lies of the projected broadcast, because as we know, that has an underlying agenda. It does not want you to be you. It wants you to be what they want you to be. And as I've always heard before, if you're not living your agenda, you're living someone else's agenda. So live your agenda. Return to your nature, and you get back there eventually. We all do.
That's right. Yep. Woo! As always, Micah is smoking. All right. Okay, so moving along further, Bruce is in the prison. So next, Bruce encounters oh no, you went a little too far.
I did. Let me go back.
Yeah, you can stay on the prison scene. I got some more on the prison scene.
Mansion. Y'all got a preview.
I know you did, right? All right. Well, that quick flash that Michael showed, it was the mansion. And some of you out there are Bible thumpers, some of you may not be, but there's a scripture where the God-man, Christ, says, in my Father's house are many mansions. So as Bruce is having this nightmare, at this time he's thinking it's a nightmare, but like I said, once you get to a certain place, it's not a nightmare, it's guidance. So Bruce is having recollections of running around this huge mansion, and he's able to do what he wants, and he's at joy, he's having fun. He doesn't experience any type of fear or pain. Only he isn't experiencing that. The only time he does experience that is when he's starting to go through these little tests to prepare him for his incarnation into the earth, into that physical body. So he's actually homesick. He's homesick, but as we go along in the story, it's going to be more revealing things that'll really make you think. So Bruce encounters a gentleman in the prison, and the scene why he's here. Bruce encounters a gentleman in the prison who tells him, "You are in hell and I'm the devil. Now,
Ooh.
Bruce, still being aware of who he is, says to this individual, this isn't hell, and you're not the devil. So Bruce tells the dude that, because like I said, even though he's taking the tumble downward to come down here and be in the earth, this cat ain't fully forgotten who he is.
Mm-hmm.
So, let me keep going here in my notes. Okay, so at this point, Bruce begins to fight some of the prisoners. So after beating up some of the prisoners, Bruce is thrown into solitary, where he has his first encounter. Wait a minute, before I go into that. Now, Bruce beats up some of the prisoners, so they throw him into solitary. And Bruce says, for what? Because at this point, Bruce has been beating these jokers up, fighting them and all that stuff like that. So the guard says for protection. And Bruce said, protection? He said, what? They don't need protection. And the guard said, no. He says protection. And the guard says, yeah, their protection from you.
Mm.
Yeah, because like I said now, Adam, Eve, Bruce, Rachel, God, Goddess. This cat ain't completely forgot who he is. So he's able to use the things he's learned, because you go through several stages while you're here. You got priestess mode, you got scribe mode where you learning and you're learning and jotting down notes. You got warrior mode where you fight.
Mm-hmm.
So you got so many different stages you go through. So this cat, man, he in there kicking ass. So they lock his ass up in solitary, like, nah, protection from you. Because he's at a place where, he still kind of knows who he is. So he can use that. He can use that shit to beat it. And that's what he's doing. He's beating them up. So after beating up some of the prisoners, Bruce is thrown into solitary, where he has his first encounter with Ra's al Ghul. Now we're getting there. We're getting a little hot here. So, Mike, if you please would give us a picture of Mr. Ra's al Ghul.
So I got to go past the mansion.
Yeah, we got to go past heaven real quick.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so if you look on the picture right here, this is Ra's al Ghul. Now, Ra's emerges from the shadows, comes out of the shadows. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Okay, so Ra's comes out of the shadows. He tells Bruce, and I quote, "Someone like you is only here by choice. You have been exploring the criminal fraternity. But whatever your original intentions, you have become truly lost." Now, okay. So let's just look at the wordplay here. He says to him, now, I'm gonna give y'all the meaning of Ra's al Ghul, and y'all gonna get it. So
I'm very curious about this.
Oh yeah, it gets good. So Ra's emerges from the darkness. Okay, so he says, you have been exploring the criminal fraternity. Yeah. So, okay, now when we come down into this earth, the first thing the first major lesson is duality: light, dark, good, and evil. So Bruce was exploring the criminal fraternity. He was trying to understand the opposite of light, the opposite of good, which is dark. He was trying to understand that shit. I mean, the opposite of good, which is evil, the opposite of light, which is darkness. So he was already studying this shit. So we come down here, like I said, we come down here to learn this shit. You got some jokers, I'm just gonna be a good person. So you're just gonna be a bump on the damn log the whole time you're here? No, you gotta participate in this shit down here.
Yeah.
You gotta participate. You gotta participate in life. You don't participate, your ass will be back. You will be back. So he says you have been exploring the criminal fraternity, darkness, but whatever your original intentions, look at what he's telling them now, whatever your original intentions, you have become truly lost. Now, let's look. I'm just going to say the meaning of lost real quick. Unable to find one's way, not knowing one's whereabouts. Now, Micah touched on it. I touched on it. When you get down here, you experience so much shit. So you have those moments where you lose your way. So this dude he's incarnated now, and Ra's al Ghul is telling him. Now, like I said, Ra's al Ghul, Ra emerges from the shadows. Now, Ra's al Ghul, the meaning of the name Ra's al Ghul is head of the demon.
Whoa.
Yeah, now we're getting somewhere now. If anybody, now I'm gonna give y'all some biblical references here. Another aspect of I'm not gonna say the ego, because the true spiritual ego is your God self or your goddess. That's who you are. That's your true spiritual ego. Egoism, that's when you start getting into the false personality of who you're not. So this is this dude's egoism coming from the shadows, because your egoism will let your ass know it's going to give you the truth, but it's going to give you the truth in the most painful way. It will. Now, your higher self is going to be gentle. Like, look, doc, I don't think we need to go that route. Your higher self will even make some shit happen just so you won't experience certain shit. Like, nope, we're not going down that road. But if you give into that egoism, you will get that kick of the donkey. You will get that shit. It will hurt. Now, okay, so Roz emerges from the shadows. Now, look, he already gave the dude a bit of truth. He was like, someone like you is only here by choice. Remember, he was being prepared for his incarnation. He had a choice as to whether he wanted to come down or not. So everything prior to this was preparing him for the incarnation. He still had a choice to be like, you know what? Nah, I didn't change my mind, man. I'm just gonna kick it up here, Yeah, I might go down there and be a guide or some shit like that. I don't know about this shit. I don't know about it. But so Roz, being a manifestation of Bruce's own egoism, tells him the truth that he's lost his way and offers him a path. Now, side note.
Interesting.
Bruce don't even know that this is Ra's al Ghul, because when Ra's al Ghul introduces himself to Bruce, he introduces himself as someone else. He calls himself Henry Ducard. Now, this was a beautiful part in the movie, because when your egoism shows up, you never see the full face of it until you're ready to see the full face of it. And it's always going to be sitting there in the darkness, because your egoism is built up of all the bullshit that you've been taught, the shit that's made you afraid. Now you've given life to something.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and again, part of this quote unquote matrix reality is based on, it just seems like a whole ego gone mad. Check out, what is it, Agent Smith and the Matrix. Everybody, or another example is probably kind of different kind, but like Golem from Lord of the Rings. Everybody has One of those bizarre things. Yeah, it is interesting how it shows itself. I would say be mindful, because what I've also looked at too is that egoism can take on a very sly spiritual tone as well, where it just comes off very mean and critical, but will use spirituality as a way to criticize and judge and demean you. So just be mindful of how that shows up as well, to use religion and everything else. And again, part of this is just, one of the challenges slash opportunities of this quote unquote reality. So it's, everybody has an ego. We all have to go through and deal with this. So this is not one of those things that you go and blame yourself, because again, it's being aware of the quote unquote reality we're in. But it's also not becoming a victim to it too, because again, for the consciousness and awareness, we can certainly be aware when we are engaged in egoism, or when our egoism taking on a spiritual cloak to try to steer us in a particular direction or get us caught in some of these mental loops. So I would just say that when you get to different parts of your journey, just be mindful that sometimes that ego will pose itself as, what some people used to call, I guess, a false light, new age kind of concept. And, trick you into thinking, oh, you've got more karma. If you don't do this, you're going to have more karma. And it just, you'll know, because it comes off as something that's actually very mean and very biting. But it will definitely trip you up into you getting into judgments of yourself, comparisons, and your true nature doesn't need to judge, doesn't have any comparisons. It's none of that. So just be mindful as you go along in life, how the different forms and different cloaks and veils that egoism can actually take, because some of it's very pervasive and very subtle, but nonetheless present.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because just touching on what Micah said when she says it can take on the spiritual tone. See, anything that your egoism can do to distract you from discovering that real you that doesn't know fear, that real you that's in the moment. It never wants you to be in the moment. It always wants you to be somewhere else. Always. So if your ass want to go to meditation, it'll go to meditation with you.
It
It'll
will.
do that. It'll do that. If you want to go out here and pass out pamphlets, it will do that. But man, the moment you have that pure interaction with that higher self, and that higher self speaks back, man, that joke is about to declare war on you. So it's gonna throw everything it can your way, because it knows when you touch the real spiritual ego, your real self, your divinity, its time is up. It knows that. It already knows that.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna go into another description of it. It says, the egoism of the personality is the illegitimate, insane child of the obscure desire born in the darkness of ignorance and of mind substance. It is a collective elemental misrepresenting its temporal existence as the immortal ego self, taking control of the whole personality, contaminating mind substance in the human subconsciousness. A healer must disentangle his or herself from the ego self, from egoism and its vices, greed, anger, hatred, and many others. With mind super substance and his or her willpower can succeed.
Yeah. And I think I will just say, from my perspective, healer is, that whole thing, heal thyself, because that's something that each individual has to, is something that we'll have to undertake ourselves, in dealing with an ego in that regard. And, I was also going to say, because and what I have found, and I think, there might be other people can relate, is that sometimes what an ego does is, because it's just, part of this the egoism or an active ego, or wherever you want to put it, wants you to be like everybody else in your community, whatever community that is. It could be your ethnic community, your gender, your spiritual community, the collective community, because it is like a projection, and sometimes it does have a desire to steer you away to what it wants you to be. And when you've really connected more to your true nature, you are more aware of that. So sometimes it seems like, oh my gosh, why does it seem like my quote unquote my ego or overactive ego is so amplified? Well, it was always there, but as you grow and as you evolve, you can just see it, you can hear it. And so it sounds really loud, and at least for mine does, or just really apparent, but that was something that was always there. But again, we talk about evolution. We also talk about an involution. When our spirit descends in our bodies, we have a greater awareness. And so certain things about ourselves or certain things about this constructed reality seem very amplified. And the thing is that they were always there, but now we've come to a different place, a different space in our life where we can actually see it or perceive it very differently and ultimately for what it is, which, is kind of an illusion, or in some places a delusion. Um, so yeah.
Yep. And touching further on what Mikey said, dealing with the delusion, the next thing that Roz tells Bruce, and I remember, he said to him before this, he says, whatever your original intentions, you have become truly and lost. Now he hit him with the intentions. So he says, and I'm quoting, but if you make yourself more than just a man, if you devote yourself to an ideal, and if they, the world, can't stop you, then you become something else entirely. Bruce asks, which is what? And Roz responds, a legend. Now, okay, you have to really look at this, because he's really, really laying it on thick here. He tells this cat, you can become a legend. Mm-hmm. Do you know how many men and women have been down into this earth incarnation, and that's been the very thing, probably the last thing on that temptation list where they could have become great?
Yes, and, especially like the next Buddha or next Jesus. See, that's where.
Yeah, that's that legend. That's that legend. Mm-hmm. That's the legend. You hit it right on the head. The next Buddha or the next Jesus, man. Now the crazy part is, Buddha had that temptation. Christ had that temptation. They both went through the same thing. When it says that, when the scripture says that Christ was led out into the wilderness, it says he was led by the Spirit. So this cat went through his initiation, which that was the baptism represents initiation. You about to take the journey, you're going down the hard path. That's what that means. So he was led by the Spirit. You look it up, Spirit, Ruach in the Hebrew, Ruach, Holy Spirit, Shekinah, feminine presence. That's the wisdom. Because it's like, you know what? I'm not about to come and awaken myself completely in this meat sack, and this dude ain't ready. So the Shekinah, Elohim, Ruach, it leads this dude into the wilderness. Like, nah, okay, bro, let me see if you're ready for this. So then it says he was led into the wilderness to be tempted by Satan. Another definition of Satan is egoism. That's what that means. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what that means. The accuser. What is the egoism going to do? It's going to accuse you of shit. It wants you to feel down. That's what it's there for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got to get past that.
Yeah.
If y'all don't think, if y'all can't get it from the spiritual references, go and watch The Matrix. Agent Smith. That was Neo's egoism. He never called him Neo. Never. It was always Mr. Anderson.
Yeah.
The dude's name was Thomas. Thomas Anderson. Thomas. What did Thomas do in the Bible? He was a doubter. So he never called the cat Neo, which was an anagram for one, the awakened one, the Messiah. He never called him the Messiah because his own egoism knew at that point, like, man, if I acknowledge this dude as a Messiah, my ass is dead. He would dissolve. He knew that.
Mm-hmm.
So he never did it. So he says, you can become a legend. So does Bruce take the bait?
Does he?
Does he take the bait? Well, if he didn't take the bait, we wouldn't be up here discussing Batman Begins. So he took the bait. All right, so okay, so he takes the bait because Roz is now saying, well, look, I can offer you a path. That's what he's telling this cat. I can offer you a path. So, and I went over that. He offered him the path. So now Bruce is about to become a member of the League of Shadows. And Ra's al Ghul, the leader of the League of Shadows, the head of the demon.
Mm-hmm.
I just told y'all what another meaning of Satan is. It's the egoism. So, head of the demon, look at what I just said, head of the demon. So he's offering him the path. Now, if you take the path of the egoism, that is the hard path. Like, so you taking the path of anger, everything I went over, but for Bruce, it's anger, and we'll get into that. But for Bruce, it's anger and it's vengeance. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, you about to say something, Mike? Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't know. Should I stay on the screen?
Oh, let's see. Okay, you should pull up Roz's home now.
Oh, well,
No, that's fine. Right there's good. That's good because you can do the picture of Bruce and then you can go to Roz's home. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so Bruce takes the bait to become a pupil of Ra's al Ghul. The first test is to bring a rare blue flower to Ra's al Ghul, and that's his ticket to enter Raz's home. Now, okay, if anyone has ever studied colors,
I was going to say there must be something about blue.
yes, ma'am, it is. You know, that's what I'm talking about, Michael Jagger. That's what I'm talking about. Now, if anyone has ever studied colors and their symbolism, blue represents devotion.
No wonder see, that's another thing you got to be careful about this Matrix. They use colors on purpose.
Yeah, they do. They do. Good point. They really do. Good point. So Raj told him, said, well, if you can meet me here, there's a rare blue flower that grows in the mountains. Now, when you're watching the movie, Bruce takes the path, and man, it's cold, it's snowy, and all those things are representation of this hard path that he's about to take. He's about to take the path of egoism. So he's decided he's going to go that route. That's what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So Bruce takes the bait to become a pupil of Ra's al Ghul. The first test is to bring a rare blue flower to Ra's al Ghul and his ticket to enter. That's his ticket to get in, because in order for you to, whatever path you take in life, you got to be devoted to it. So this dude done made up his mind, okay, I'm going to follow the way of Ra's al Ghul. All right, so Bruce encounters the harsh cold and the mountain peaks to enter the school, which is symbolic of the many hard lessons of his own egoism that he's going to experience. Now, halfway to Ra's to Roz's school, a villager tells Bruce to turn back, but Bruce doesn't. Remember when I said earlier, your higher self be coming through with them warnings and trying to stop you from doing that shit? Here it is right here. This was the dude like, look, man, the villager didn't even know the cat. But once again, this is an aspect of his higher self. So he says, man, turn back. Bruce keeps going. Don't turn back. Okay, now, he doesn't turn back. And another thing I wanted to touch on when I was telling you about egoism and the Satan in the Hadith, which is some of the words by the Prophet Muhammad, it says, no person is born but that he is pricked by Satan and he cries from the touch of Satan when he leaves the womb. That's the egoism. So they said that is why the baby cries, because it hears that growl of the egoism within its own cell structure, within its subconscious mind.
Well, yeah, and also being born into what humanity's endured for what, thousands of years? I think you're already aware of.
Exactly.
You as well, but I kind of think, I mean, I know myself, people said I cried a lot as a kid. I definitely see why I did. I mean, damn, look at this. Like I said, there's other aspects of reality on this earth, but we're talking about like the mainstream media, mainstream world. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Why babies cry. I mean, look at all the stuff that's being projected, right? When you're born, and the stuff that the mother is experiencing in the womb, all the different stresses and different things. So yes, no wonder you come out crying and birth trauma. And it's not blaming the mother or anything, but it's just seeing this construct, this thing that we're in. So yeah. It's been like that for a while, hot minute, 3,000 years at least, probably more.
Yep, you're right. You're right. So let's see. Okay. So Bruce becomes a pupil of Roz, and Roz says to him, listen to this now. Roz says to him, and I quote, to manipulate the fear in others, you must first master your own. I'm going to read it again. To manipulate the fear in others, you must first master your own. Now let's look at manipulate. Means to handle or control in a skillful manner. Cunning, having or showing a skill in achieving one's ends by deceit or evasion. Now, if we go back, remember, Roz told the dude, he said, you know what? He says, let's see. You have been exploring the criminal fraternity. And I went over the duality of being here, light, dark, good, and evil. He was studying this shit. That's what he was doing. So now, a big weapon of evil or darkness is fear. So he tells him, to manipulate the fears in others, you must first master your own fear. Now, remember, in the beginning, Bruce's fear was the bat. And I already told y'all what the bat is symbolic of: death and rebirth. Now, I'm going to share a story with you guys. My grandmother, I was raised by my grandmother and my mom. And my grandmother, we were really close. So at times it was more like my grandmother was my mother and my mom was my sister, because my mom, she had me when she was 19. So now my grandmother had beat breast cancer. So she got the breast, she was first diagnosed in 1995. And that was the year I was coming out of high school. So 5 years later, she succumbs to the cancer She had been going to get her checkups and all that stuff like that. She had a breast removed, and 5 years later, in 2000, the cancer was back. Okay, so the number 5, if you studied numerology, the number 5, hold up. You know what? Let me read it to y'all so we can stay on point here. Give me 1 second. Hold on there. Okay. Okay, here we go. So remember I said 5 years, it was 5 years later when the cancer came back. So 5 is an important number when it comes to life lessons, when it comes to numerology. So we got the number 5, right? Now, my grandmother had gone to the doctor, and of course, the cancer was back. So this time it had spread all through her stomach. So the doctor basically was like, there's nothing we can do. So around this time, I remember it was like it was yesterday. Now, my grandma was very, very clairvoyant. And I remember I was outside, and our neighbor, this was in the daytime. I'm talking about like high noon. There was a bat on the front window of the living room. There was a bat in the daytime. And I remember then it was right there on the window, like you couldn't miss it. And me and my grandmother always had a very strong psychic link. And I remember that day when that bat was on that window, I intuitively knew it was a bad omen. Not bad as in evil or nothing like that, but I just intuitively knew it was related to the cancer. I knew that. So anyway, I remember our neighbor had took some hot water and she threw on the bat, and the bat still didn't move. And finally the bat moved. And I remember she just had this look on her face, and it was just like, oh man, this is a bad omen. Like, she knew it. And I remember my grandma was sitting in the kitchen, and she didn't even have to say anything. And I knew what it was. It was like, this is in her mind, it was like bad luck, but I knew it had something to do with the cancer. And when they gave her that diagnosis, like, you might as well just go ahead and prepare yourself. Yeah. Remember what I told you, the bat represents death and rebirth. And that bat showed up on that front window. Wow. Just chilling. It was the craziest thing. Like, I will never forget that. Never forget that. I just wanted to just share that briefly. But like I said, we get that communication from spirit, whether you want to say it's God in the Bible through signs and wonders, source is going to communicate through nature. It's going to do it. It's going to, yeah. So, okay. So getting back. Okay, Bruce becomes a pupil of Roz. He tells him about manipulating the fears in others. You must first master your own. We got to that. And now Bruce makes it into Roz's home.
I
You can
will go
show,
to Raza's home.
thank you, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay, now if you look at this picture, this looks like a temple almost. Like it's like built into the rock of the mountain. Like if you look at it. It looks, but it's dark. Like most temples have a certain vibration to them, but this place looks cold. It looks like it's dark. There's gonna be some hard lessons. So Bruce brings the flower, and at this point, Roz attacks Bruce, but then quickly realizes that Bruce isn't afraid of him and wonders what is Bruce's fear. Remember, I went over what egoism is and the energies that egoism uses. And those energies, let's see, where are we at? Those energies are greed, anger, hatred, and fear. I went over those energies. So like I said, Roz realized, wait a minute, Bruce isn't afraid of me. He wonders what Bruce's fear is. Bruce passes out from the fight with Roz Al Ghul, the head of the demon. So at this point, Bruce is wrestling the demon. His egoism, his own egoism. Now, if we go back to the flashback, Bruce is back in the mansion. So now what's happening, he's having these flashbacks because he's fully incarnated now, but he's going back to the mansion. Yeah. So if you could pull that mansion up, please.
Okay. I'm gonna have to scroll up.
That's fine. Okay, so look at this. Now, look at this picture. Now, when you see a place like this, the first thing that's gonna come in your mind is gonna be wonder, excitement. Yo, I really like to explore this place. I can't wait to get inside. So this dude is already having the flashbacks. So when we go back, the flashback he has, Bruce has taken that tumble down in preparation, and we talked about that. And after having his wounds nursed by his father, who asked Bruce, why do we fall? And he says, so that we can pick ourselves up. These are Bruce's lessons before fully incarnating into the vessel, the container, the human body. Now, like I said, he's already taken the plunge, but now he's having these flashbacks. And there are moments when he does have the flashback, he becomes afraid. Now, what's the fear? Micah touched on it. I touched on it. Man, you get down here and it's like, man, I don't know if I can get out. I don't know if I can go back home. So he's experiencing all those emotions. He's experiencing that. So at this moment, Bruce's father shows him. He's nursed him back to health. Bruce is laying in this big bed, got his silk pajamas on. You know, he ain't feeling no fear because he knows I'm with my protector. I'm with my father. I'm with both of my parents. Now, both of the parents are in the mansion, but it's the father who came, the father who descended down, pulled him up by his hand and took him back to the mansion. Like, all right, you know, you took a little tumble, but you know, you still got to go through with it. So he got him back up. You know, they got his little wounds nursed back. So Bruce's father shows him a string of pearls that the father is about to present to Bruce's mother as a surprise. Now, the surprise here is this. The mother gave birth to Bruce. So she's been a part of this process of Bruce being prepared to fully incarnate into this body. So now the father is presenting the pearls to her like, yo, he's ready. Tonight's the night. So the first thing the father does before he gives it to the mother, he says to Bruce, he said, hey, you think she'll like it? He's waiting to see what Bruce is going to say. So he goes, Yeah, she will. She's gonna like it. Okay, so not only is this a preparation for Bruce, but it's also a preparation for the mother, because no mother wants to send their child into some hell, and the father's like, well, no, he's got you in him, and he's got me in him. He's good. He's gonna come back. But no mother wants to do that. They don't want to do that. So let's look at the pearl. I'm just gonna read y'all the definition. I didn't put a slide up of the pearl. So the pearl is symbolic. Listen to this now. The pearl is symbolic of the soul's journey, perfection, and incorruptibility, knowledge, and highly feminine. Highly. You could almost say it's almost like giving birth.
Yes, but does anybody, but people know how a pearl is formed, but I think I cannot remember if it was an oyster or whoever.
I think an oyster or a clam, somewhere.
Yeah, I think they're slightly different, but it's kind of like the lotus that rises from the muck. You don't get the pearl just, there's some irritation involved, there's some alchemy involved that actually creates the pearl. And for all of us to be that pearl, it requires the irritation, the agitation, the alchemy, these life experiences that we're having for us to realize the pearl within. They call it pearls of wisdom or pearls of great price.
Yeah. Ooh, look at that. See, Mike. See,
So
that's
we're each of that pearl, but it's our life experiences that reveal the pearl to us, and each of us is tasked with discovering that pearl within. Each of us is our own pearl. So that's another way that at least I look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. You know what? Micah beat us to the punch because no, good job. I was going to touch on that. I was actually going to go to Matthew chapter 13, verse 45 through verse 46. And in that part, Christ says again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a merchant man seeking goodly pearls, who when he had found one pearl of great price, went and sold all that he had and bought it. Now, once again, the pearl of the great price is finding that kingdom of heaven inside of you, source, getting acquainted with source, knowing at that point, ain't nothing can separate me from source. Like there's nothing. I'm it and it is me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's it. That's where when you get to that level, ain't no fear, no worry. It's just, you know what? All right, well, okay. Let me go ahead and finish the mission, and I'm going home soon. So, okay. So moving along. All right, so you can go ahead to the play scene with Mephistopheles, which Mephistopheles is just another name for the devil. So let's go to that.
Keep going. Here?
Right there. Okay. So now, Bruce's father is about to present the pearls to the mom, but he gets Bruce's approval on it because, see, Bruce had to give the approval before that could be presented to the mother, and that was also symbolic of him being saying, you know what, I'm ready. I'm gonna find the pearl. His dad even lets him touch the pearl before he leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Before he leaves, because like I told you, any mother has to have unshakable faith that, okay, my child is gonna be all right. That's what that represents. Okay, all right, he's gonna be good. He's gonna be good. He's gonna be good. So the father showed it to Bruce first, got Bruce's approval, and that approval from Bruce is, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. So give it to the mother. So now Bruce is now preparing for a night out, incarnation, with his parents, the masculine and the feminine part of source, principle, and they're taking the train, which is at this point, Now they're transitioning. It's like, okay, we are accompanying you now because you're about to fully incarnate. You're about to go into this body. So they're with him on the train. So, which is symbolic of transportation from one dimension to the other. Side note, Bruce's father, representing the God, is a doctor and a healer of souls which have become fragmented. Now, on this trip, Bruce sees Wayne Tower. Wayne Tower is symbolic of the father's work in the movie. So Bruce asked his dad, he said, well, do you work there? He said, no, that's our tower. That's our family name. He said, I work in the hospital. So the father is constantly working on the fragmented souls to make sure they get back. All right, so Bruce and his parents are at the opera. Now, if you remember this scene in the movie, the camera pans through and everybody's got on tuxedos. The men got on the tuxedos, the women got on the evening gowns. Well, what's funny is this: Bruce is the only kid in the opera. Now, this is symbolic because all the other men and women in the opera at that time are gods and goddesses. So they're preparing this god for his incarnation to become a god. Ain't that crazy?
I never looked at it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's going on. He's the youngest cat in it. He's a young soul, and he's about to take that descent. He's a young soul. So at this point in the opera is being performed, the play is Mephistopheli, and you see it's the devil, which is a Faustian opera. Now, we went over the devil, we went over the egoism. At this point in the play, the bat-like creatures are dancing around the devil. So Bruce starts seeing these flashes of the bat. He gets scared. So Bruce is like, he starts to see the bats. They flashing. So man, Bruce is like, yo, can we go? And the father looks at the mother. Now, this is the funny part. The mother ain't even flinching. She just sitting up there like stoic. Like, like, okay, I got my pearls on. It's time. Bruce is starting to get, that, what they call it, that, like, I already bought it, but can I take it back now? You're starting to get a little fearful. So now Bruce is experiencing that fear, and the father's like, oh, okay, man, we can go. You ready to go? We can go. Because now he's already prepared for the moment. It's like, okay, there's no turning back now. That's why the mom is sitting there like, I'm good. I got my pearls. You're the symbolic representation of my pearls, my soul. I know you're going to be all right. So the mom ain't even concerned about Bruce's fear at this point. She ain't concerned. It's the father's now trying to make Bruce feel comfortable with his decision. So at this point, with the play taking place in the opera, this is symbolic of the great drama being played out of incarnating on this planet. Being incarnated in the matter. That's the drama. So Bruce is afraid at the opera and I just went over this, because of the images of the devil and the bats. Bruce is now about to be fully placed in his human vessel. He's fully about to be placed in it now, because it's like, okay, remember, they took the train into the city. They came from one dimension to the next. They are with him. They are with him for the ceremony. Man, they clean. And it's like, okay. Bruce feeling good. But as soon as he get a taste of them bats, and it's like, oh shit, that's that death and rebirth. Like, damn, I don't know, man. That's that buyer beware shit. Like, I'm gonna take the shit back. I'm gonna take it on back. I'm gonna go and take them back. I'm gonna make up something so I can't do it. So that's what's going on right now. All right, so he's about to be fully placed into the container. Bruce, and at this point, like I said, Bruce was afraid, so he was like, "Can we leave?" And see, he already knew. It's funny, he didn't ask the mom, "Could we leave?" He asked the dad, "Could we leave?" Remember, I told you, if you go back and watch this part of the movie, the mom is sitting there stoic. Now she got the pearls around her neck, right next to the heart center. She's like, "Nah, oh, you're gonna be all right. I got your approval on this." Like I said, the pearls are symbolic of the soul's journey. So she already knows he's coming back home. He'll be back. So she ain't no emotion there. She's not scared, none of that. So Bruce turns to the father once again, like, "Yo, can we go?" And the father said, "Oh, okay, Bruce. Okay. Yeah, we know. Okay, we can go." So at this point, Bruce and his parents enter the alley from the opera, which the alley is like a doorway into the physical reality. Can you pull that slide up, please?
Hold on. Let me see. Hold on there. Here's some text stuff that's going. Hold on. Okay.
Okay.
This the picture?
Yes. I'm gonna explain it. Hold on, give me a second. Looking through my notes. All right, so now the alley is like a doorway into this physical reality. So this scene now remember in the opera, everybody's clean. They got their tuxes on. The women got the evening gowns on. They got the best makeup on, their hair, the furs, all that. They looking good. So now, soon as they come out in the alleyway, it's dirty. There's trash everywhere. There's graffiti. This dude is fully into the earth at this point. He is fully there. All right, so at this point, a gunman comes out, and if you remember how Ra's al Ghul emerged from the darkness, at this point, a gunman emerges, and he demands the father's wallet, and he takes it, and then he reaches. He said, he grabbed the wallet, and Bruce's father was like, "Okay, man, you got the wallet." He said, "Well, I said the jewelry too." So at this point, he goes to reach for the pearls. Remember, the pearls are symbolic of the soul's journey. That's what it's symbolic of, right? I told y'all that. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing he reaches for. And who steps in to keep him from corrupting the soul? It's the father. He reaches for the pearls of the mother. The father steps in to protect the mother. So when the guy reaches, he shoots the father. And then when he snatches the pearls, which he didn't get them, they just all came off the string, then he shoots the mother. So father steps in front of the gun, it fires, he drops, and then the gunman goes for the pearls worn by the mother, so he shoots the mother too. Now, remember, emerging from the darkness, so you got this hand coming forward to get to the pearls. The father steps in front of the mother like, "Nah, I ain't about to go down like that, chief." Bam, kills the dad. Bam, kills the mom. So Bruce is sitting there like, what the hell just happened? Like, what? And when Micah talked about the crying, this is that shock that a Joker experiences when they know when you take that first breath as a baby and they crying, it's like, oh shit, I can't go back now. It's like, and the doctors be looking for that. Oh, he's crying. Okay, he's breathing. So this is what this is symbolic of, because now The mom is laying slain and the dad's laying, which is just symbolic that at this point, only thing you're gonna have is memories. You can get flashes. So before the last thing the father says to Bruce, don't be afraid. That's the last thing he says to him. Don't be afraid. And man, when the camera pans in and all you see at this point is fear on Bruce's face. That's all you see is fear on Bruce's face. That's all you can see. Now, once again, this is all symbolic of the incorruptibility of the soul. The gunman reaching for the pearls, darkness reaching out at the true light, the source. Bruce is a part of that light that comes down from source. So you got the darkness that's gonna go for it. It's like moth to a flame, like, yo, I gotta get this. At this point, Bruce, in Bruce's mind, he's being ripped from the kingdom of heaven, i.e. the mother and the father. Parting words of Bruce's father once again, don't be afraid. So what's happening now is this Joker is fully in the vessel now. He is fully in the vessel. The last words is, don't be afraid. Because anything after this moment, it's going to be flashes. It's going to be visions. It's going to be dreams. It's going to be synchronicity of coming across people at the right time. Anything moving forward, that's what it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So is this the last slide for this part, or shall we?
No, that's last. Oh, wait a minute. Did we I think that's what's the next slide? Is there another slide?
Let me look.
Yeah.
Oh, we are already on. That's the last part of part 1.
Yeah.
Wow. I was like, we've only just begun, right?
No, yeah, that's bad. Batman Begins. That's why I was telling you, like, when I was when I started watching it, because I would do blogs for a friend of mine's website. Like, they'd ask me to do some, like, just to do a quick breakdown of a movie. And of course, I went back and looked at the notes that I did when I did this some years back. And I said, okay, you know what? Let me meditate. Let me get in the zone. And man, when I started watching it, and then I looked at the notes I had, I was like, shit, this ain't even close to what I'm seeing now. I was like, dang. Because at that, it was so, I'm not saying the information was basic, because the more you unfold, the more your soul is going to unfold for you. So it was just like, I put it this way, when I was watching it, it was just like, it was like watching a movie. I was watching a movie, but I could relate to the movie based on my spiritual experiences. So I was like, oh shit. I'm like, damn, it was like, man, it's gotten easier, I should say. Like, when I was watching it and the information I was getting after I meditated, I was like, damn. Because at one point, when I was first studying all of this, it was a struggle for me to accept the information. And now when I was seeing it, it was just like, oh man, that's it. Like, there was no more struggle. There wasn't no internal battle. It was like, and then I laughed. I'm like, damn, boy, I done came a long way from like Bible study and preschool. Well, I call it preschool, but it was, I put it this way, it gave me peace. It gave me peace.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it really gave me peace. And it gave me peace. not only peace, but I would definitely say, because I got friends and we always talk about this stuff, and they're like, man, how do you get that out of these movies? And I'll be sitting there like, how do you not get it out? Because it's kind of like, I'm trying to, man, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it, but okay. I read this story about children in India one time, and it was just talking about it was basically talking about religion, like how people view religion and how they view religion, spirituality, and metaphysics. And the guy was like, you know, he started talking about the pyramid. He was saying how when Westerners look at the pyramid, they see the first thing they see is the point and everything comes down. Mm-hmm. And he was like, when the Easterners look at the pyramid, they see the pyramid coming to a point as meaning wholeness or a point of light. And man, when I thought about it, I was like, nah. Ah. And then when I was like, I said, shit, he right. I was like, damn. And I started laughing because he would he basically was saying in the book, like, you know, they're not just being taught stories. They're being taught that it's not that, of course, when you're younger, they're being taught that, okay, this is a story, but also as they mature and they grow, they're being taught that it's allegory and that there's symbolism. Whereas in the Western part of the world, we just taught the story. We're not taught the symbolism. You don't start seeking out the symbolism until later in life. You're like, oh man, this was saying so much more. It's just like a person say, oh yeah, man, you know, Adam and Eve was running around in the garden, man, they was naked. Now, when I was younger, I'm thinking these jokers got some fig leaves on. And I'm like, man, you know, they probably got cold. So they went and like killed a bear or something, put some bear skin on or some shit like that. That's how I was thinking. But then when, you know, once I'm like, oh shit, this ain't even saying that. Like, damn.
Yeah, people see things from different perspectives based on conditioning, what you grew up with, and just your own interpretations of life. I did notice, though, I put archetypical journey. I guess that could be archetypical, typical archetype. I thought I said archetypal, but apparently I wrote an archetypical journey into death, darkness, and divinity. Okay, then. It is an archetypical journey, an archetypal journey. I using my wordsmithing might catch that, but hey, maybe it was meant to be archetypical, whatever that means. So grammar police, come at me. I'm ready.
That's right.
All right. Wow, that was a wonderful beginning. We might have a part 2, maybe even a part 3. But I guess before we close out, Barrie, any other further thoughts before we end this episode and this series for now?
Oh man, this was, if you remember the first 2 we did, we were it was like we was nervous, and I this one it just felt good. Like,
well, I know arena, so that does, you know, this kind of stuff. So
yeah. Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, huh. Because, you know, the first couple of times I was nervous. I don't know if you was nervous, but this one, I was like, man, I was noticing the vibe of just the vibe that we were having there. And I was like, oh, wow. There's no nervousness. There's no need for Pepto-Bismol. So.
All right, there you go, folks. I guess that's what happens when stuff like this happens. Oh, man. But thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, Barrie, for presenting that information to us. Hopefully we will be back in touch with you sooner as I guess everybody's schedule and time allows. So with that, this is Micah. I will, sign off and then let Barrie end it for us. But thank you all again for coming and joining in on the Ninth Hour podcast. Appreciate yourselves, appreciate your journey. It is, we're all designed to take our own mythic path, and it always leads us back home to who we've always been and who we always will be. It's just making the most of the journey. And as I said, I know it may sound like a cliche, but really, there is heaven in a wildflower. Heaven in a wildflower. You may not even need to look outside your home. Just don't get caught up in what you think it has to look like. Be aware of the spiritual ego or the ego taking on a spiritual cloak, because it will do that and distract you from seeing the gift that you really are, the change that you really are, the possibility that you really are, um, the light and awareness that you really are, and being the source of fulfillment that you always have been. So thank you all for joining us. And then I will let Barrie in right here.
All righty. Well, um, I think Micah took all the words just now that I had, but nah, it was a pleasure being able to present the information tonight. It was a pleasure that Source was giving me the information. I'm very thankful. I was amazed at the information I was getting. Also, I'm very thankful to have such a lovely co-host, because a lot of times I say it, and then when she says, I'm like, damn, she squeezed even more out of that. I didn't even catch that. So, Micah, I want to thank you for helping me on this project. I enjoy your input. You always open my eyes to different things. So I'm definitely appreciative of you for that. And I'm appreciative of our fans. So thank you. And I think that's it.
Yes, thank you, Barrie. All right. Until next time, you all have a lovely day, time, whatever space, time continuum we're on, because as the saying goes, no one really knows what day or hour it really is. But for now, just all intensive purposes, we're calling it the ninth hour. So until next time, ciao. Bye.
Ciao.